one of the things I learned in February is that I can make a gigantic dent in my bank account. Hey BookTube, it's Kim at Middle of the Book March, and this is my Bookish week for Sunday, March 9th. And the week got away with me, so I wasn't able to do a midweek video, but I am definitely 92% sure that I will have one this coming week on Wednesday. So please don't hold your breath, because I'm still not sure, but that's my goal, my big goal for the week. So I have since finished 3 books. 2 of them are graphic novels, so don't be that impressed. They went really fast, and that's the only reason why I finished 3 in 1 week. First of all, we finished the second to last book in the Pinheiro Project, Betty Boo by Claudia Pinheiro, translated from the Spanish by Miranda France. And this was good. It wasn't great for me, but it was good, and I really enjoyed it. Pinheiro has been described as Argentina's foremost crime writer. And most of her other books do not take the entire novel to introduce and solve a crime. So it's been a little interesting, the description of her as a novelist, because there's a crime, typically there's a crime in the beginning of her books, and then we read a lot of character development and description throughout the novels. And it's not until the end that we find out how the crime happened and why, and who was involved. With this book, it was a more typical crime novel. There's a crime at the beginning, and throughout the novel, we see this team of amateur sleuths and journalists and other people that are interested in this crime trying to solve it. At the same time, we're reading into their characters, their backgrounds, and it's very, very interesting. It was very well paced. The characters were funny and sad and heartbreaking all at the same time. The crime was kind of gruesome, but fascinating. The reasons behind the crime were really interesting. But there's something about this book and her writing in this book specifically that didn't totally connect with me 100%. And there's something lost in the translation of the books that are published by Bitter Lemon Press. I'm not sure what it is, but her newest books translated into English are published by Charco Press, and those have been much more successful for me. So I did enjoy this. It was okay. It was good. And the crime surrounds a man. It's very early in the first chapter. A man who was found dead with his throat slit in his own home in his chair. And there are 2 journalists, and actually 3 journalists, and a police inspector, and another journalist, and a group of friends. There's a lot of characters that are part of the story, but the main sleuths are the journalists to find out how did this happen and why. So it's definitely an enjoyable book. We have one more Claudia Pinheiro novel to go, and then we're done with the project. That's going to be interesting to me because the group is talking about moving on to read another author's works, but I'm not sure yet. And I don't know if I'm going to continue with that. It's going to be dependent on the author because, as you've noticed from me being gone for February, things are pretty full and a little stressful, not really in a bad way, but they're just very full, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to take part, but we will see. We'll see. So here are my 2 graphic novels that I finished. Actually, one is a memoir. This one is Medea by Nancy Pena, who did the artwork, and Blandine Lacalle. It is translated from the French, and it is translated by Montana Kane. This is a retelling of the Medea story by Euripides, and it's all, well, there might be nudity on that page. There's a lot of nudity in here, but this is basically the format of the novel. And the other interesting thing is the colors change throughout the book, and the colors represent different moods of the story. See, like the very beginning, it's a lot of oranges and warm colors and yellows, a little dark. And then, I don't know how to, this is kind of another section. And in the back of this book, there's kind of some explanations and definitions. It's almost like a glossary. There's some author notes back here. So this, I'm going to read a little bit of the back. Who was Medea really? The legendary sorceress from Greek myth has been cast as many things: a caring mother and a passionate lover who was thwarted by her desires, an independent woman vilified for refusing the tyranny of men, a barbarian who sowed confusion in the regimented world of the Greeks, a formidable witch, mistress of occult forces. Simply put, she was precisely what some would call a monster, and yet there is so much more to Medea. We read this for my book group with the Critical Chicks, and I think I may have been the only one that had read the original play by Euripides. So I did like this. The artwork is fantastic. However, I think I went into this expecting it to be more closely aligned with the play, and it was not. There was a lot of conjecture about a fictional story, a Greek myth about Medea's childhood and her family life, how she met Jason of the Argonauts, what happened with the Golden Fleece, how did she work with him to steal it back, what happened in her later life with her marriage to Jason and her children. If any of you don't know, I don't really want to tell you the end of the play Medea. I don't want, even though it's an ancient play, I still don't want to spoil it for anybody. But there's a reason why she's holding a bloody dagger, and there's this snake. The thing that was disappointing to me is these authors took out a lot of the original play. They took out the mythological aspects, the supernatural aspects of the play and the ancient story. They took out a lot of the personality of Medea that appears in the Euripides play and made her more of a compassionate figure. They also geared this book towards the feminism. And they, like I said before, they took out the supernatural aspects. I did like the book. I liked the story. I did like how it was more of learning about Medea as a woman and not a so-called witch or a sorceress or to not have to have a better term, a crazy woman, a woman that has gone off the edge and has done some things that are horrific. This book does not portray her that way, which is fine. It's just that I love the original play. I think there's so much to digest in it. There's so much to digest as far as feminism and the state of women and how women have relationships to and compare with men in ancient Greece. There is so much there about motherhood and what women take on and what women did take on in that era of time. There's so much to discuss about Medea as a character, and the Medea in the play I was fascinated by as a woman, as a potential sorceress, which I don't believe she really was. A lot of things that happened in this book also were pulled directly from the play. It's just, it was very different and unexpected for me. And so I didn't enjoy this as much as I enjoyed the Euripides play. I still think there's so much to talk about in that play as far as Medea as a feminist character and as a woman, a mother, and a wife. But again, I really did enjoy this. I love the artwork. When you read a graphic novel, in my opinion, what lacks in text, you get in the visual aspect. What lacks in description, you can see right on the page with your eyeballs. And that was really good. This is a little over 300 pages, and I read it pretty much in a day. So I do recommend it. Take a look at it if you really enjoy Greek myths. It's a good one. If you haven't read the play, it's very easy to read in one sitting. It's about 37, 38 pages in my volume, and it's excellent. You can read that and then compare the story. The next one is a graphic memoir. This is called The Best We Could Do, and hopefully I will not butcher her name. I believe it's Thi Bui, and she is a Vietnamese-American author. She was born in Vietnam and resettled in the United States. I believe she lives in California. She and her family ended up in California. This was a very good book. This is the American Book Award winner. Let's see, published in 2018. This is the author's story of her family from Vietnam. Her parents, all of her extended family are Vietnamese from Vietnam. And it is their story of how her parents emigrated from Vietnam into the United States. It takes us through the Vietnam War, both from the majority of the time from the perspective of Vietnamese people, and then a little bit of from the American perspective. She talks about the relationship with her parents and how she felt about her father and her mother, what happened with her family, her siblings, talks about extended family that they lived with when they came to the United States and their experiences. There's a lot in here about her parents and about why her relationship with her parents was so strained, individually with her mother and her father. She talks about motherhood. In the very beginning of the memoir, she gives birth to her son, and she talks about how unprepared she was. And then she goes back in time and shows us some flashbacks of her family and why she didn't know what she was doing, why she was caught unawares. What is excellent about this book is the Vietnamese history. She did a lot of research. She spoke to her family, got their personal stories, but also looked into the history of Vietnam before and after the Vietnam War. And that was excellent. A lot of things I never would have known. And this is obviously a graphic memoir, so it doesn't go exhaustively into research, but there's so much here that I still didn't know and was very, very interesting. So I definitely highly recommend this one. This is an example of the artwork, and it kind of looks like very simple drawings, but they're also very emotionally powerful. And there's a lot in here about different things, and you can see the emotions on the page in the drawings. So I very much highly recommend this one. Very good historical memoir. So run out and get that one. What am I currently reading? I am currently reading some of the same books. I am making my way through Les Mis. I will be done with this either by the end of this month or early April. Reading this with the Critical Chicks book group. We have a splinter group that reads very thick classics throughout the year. I never tab anymore, but look at them all. I'm basically tabbing beautiful writing. Hugo is a master. He is an extremely well thought out author. He puts so much liveliness and beauty in his writing. So that captured me quite a bit. And I continue to read King, A Life by Jonathan Eigg. To this day, I still have not found out how to pronounce his name. Mm-hmm. But this is the biography of Martin Luther King Jr. And it's kind of a big one, but it's not a mammoth. It's not even 600 pages. There are notes. I think it's not even 550 pages. Looks big. Font is big. So thank goodness. But I am still reading this one. Still a very readable, accessible biography. Really interesting. He's got a great writing style, so it's been quite easy to read this one. And not that that's what I look for when I read nonfiction or I read biographies, but let's face it, if you read nonfiction, and I'm not typically a nonfiction reader, I do like it, and I do appreciate it, and there are some pieces of nonfiction that I believe are exceptional. But when I read nonfiction, if it's narrative, it's going to capture me. If it's accessible to a lay reader, it's going to capture me. If it goes very much into analysis or esoteric information or very academic, scientific information, I probably won't finish that type of a book. But this one is excellent for modern history. That is it for me. Again, my big goal is to have a video for Wednesday. I'm really looking forward to doing that, getting it done. I've got, all of a sudden, now that I'm back on BookTube, all kinds of ideas floating around in my head. So I'm going to try to get to that. Let me know in the comments below what you think about any of the books I talked about, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, everybody.